Do you wonder if others are dealing with the same project management challenges as you? Not sure where to turn for guidance and leadership? Office hours are in session as we discuss project management and PMOs with global leaders, hearing their story and learning their secrets to success. Our goal is to empower you and help you elevate your PMO and project management career to new heights. Welcome back to Project Management Office Hours with your host, PMO Joe.
Welcome, everyone, to Project Management Office Hours, the #1 live project management radio show in the U.S., broadcasting to you today from the Phoenix Business Radio X studios in Tempe, Arizona. I'm your host, PMO Joe, and for the next hour, we'll be talking project management and mindfulness, a topic that we really haven't explored too much on the show, so I'm really excited to hear about that. I think today is also National Radio Day. So for all of you radio broadcasters out there, congratulations and have a great day. Also want to mention a few things that I have upcoming. On August 25th, I'll be doing a live webinar on projectmanagement.com. We'll be talking about empowering people to deliver results. Top of mind for me this year to discuss with everyone. So you can catch that at 11 a.m. Eastern. While you're on that site, check out my Purpose-Driven PMO webinar from last year. That's got over 7,000 views now and has been pretty well received. Also coming up, September 10th, ASU, Arizona State University, is having their first annual Project Management Summit. That's from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. here in Arizona. Go out to the PMO Squad website. In the community section, you'll see a place to go register for that. And then September 14th through the 26th is the PMO Impact Summit, hosted by former guest Laura Bernard. Registration is free for that, and there's over 80 leaders from around the world. So that is a can't-miss opportunity. Head over to PMOImpactSummit.com and register for that. Of course, I want to thank our sponsors, the PMO Squad, home of the purpose-driven PMO. Visit thepmosquad.com and learn how they can support your project management team and help you get your PMO on the right track. Super excited today to have our guest, Jon Macaskill, join us. Thanks for joining us, Jon. If you could take a moment, please share a little bit about yourself with our listeners.
Sure, Joe. Thanks for having me. First of all, I appreciate it. And like I was mentioning just before the show, hopefully the background noise is not too bad because I am literally pulled off of the side of the road in Laramie, Wyoming in my RV. My family and I are traveling the country right now as I just retired from the Navy at the beginning of this month. I've been in the Navy since 1996, and 17 of those years I served as a Navy SEAL. Just retired, like I mentioned, as a Navy SEAL commander, and now I am working with a nonprofit called Veterans Path, teaching mindfulness and meditation to veterans. And I've also got a side gig that I think we'll discuss. It's called Scrum on the Go. It's just a little project management tool that I've helped to create with some friends, John Davis, Beth Davis, and Saul Gomez, all of whom are Scrum and project management folks. So that's a little bit about me. My family, we've got a little 3-year-old girl and a 1-year-old little boy. They are actually in a different vehicle, luckily, right now. And then I've got my dog sitting right here. But for those who are not watching and just listening, both Joe and I have red polo shirts on. So it's like we coordinated this.
Yes, it's Red Shirt Day.
So,
well,
yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Jon. And obviously, thank you for your service as well. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
As hopefully you know and our listeners know, we're proud supporters of veterans and organizations here. And our nonprofit organization, VPMMA, helping those service members and military spouses transition into civilian project management career. So if anybody is interested in that, you can check out thevpmma.org, and we'd love your support. So let's jump into what you talked about. You're on the road. What's life like post-retirement? You're in an RV, you're traveling around. I mean, is this what all retired Navy SEAL commanders do?
No. This is definitely not what everyone does. It's a rarity. I do have a few friends who are doing it simultaneously, funny enough, but we're not all retired. Some guys are just doing it in their spare time, and others are doing it as they're retired. But so my wife and I, have been planning this for a couple of years now, and the plan was, and the reason I say plan like that, you'll hear here in a second, but the plan, as all project management professionals understand, it never goes as it was planned. So we planned to do it for 6 to 12 months on the road, and seeing all parts of the country. And we've been on the road since the beginning of July. We've been living in the RV since the beginning of May. And obviously COVID has thrown a kink in all sorts of plans, countrywide, worldwide. Well, this is not an exception. It's thrown a kink in this plan. And some of the places that we wanted to go see were closed down. Some of the places we wanted to drive through we weren't allowed to drive through. And then my wife and I thought, well, if one of us were to get COVID right now, then we would have to kind of self-quarantine somewhere in the RV.
Yeah, good luck with that. Right?
And yeah, exactly. And then the other one would be responsible for taking care of the kids and the one that was down. So we've decided to head back to Colorado. That's where I'm heading back to right now, through Wyoming, and call Colorado Springs home for a while. And then hopefully the COVID pandemic will calm down in the coming months or coming years, and we'll just reset and do this, try to do this again in the future. So yeah, it's been an experience, living in a 31-foot Class C motorhome with a 3-year-old, the 1-year-old, my wife, and then this dog that's over here being very rambunctious right now. It requires a lot of mindfulness, I will tell you that.
Yeah.
So
I would imagine
it's good that I have that tool.
I would imagine lots of good stories from the road, and your wife also served, I think, in the Navy, correct? She
did. She is an orthopedic physician assistant, and did that in the Navy. And we actually met at SEAL Team 10, where now that I'm out of the Navy, I can say this, but she worked for me. And then we had an Afghanistan romance, if you will.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And you had posted on social media, maybe a couple of weeks back it was, that her medical training came into play right on the road. What happened there?
Sure did. We were in Telluride, and my 1-year-old little boy was choking on some apples, and little bites of apples. And it wasn't choking to where you could hear him choking. It was choking where there was nothing coming out. So it was a dangerous situation. And luckily, my wife, she's a superstar, superwoman, responded instantly, picked him up, put him on her arm, and started giving him the baby Heimlich or infant Heimlich maneuver. And he spit up and he was fine. But she acted like it was nothing. And I swear, it was a superwoman in action right before my eyes. And she saved my little boy because I had learned that many years ago, the infant Heimlich maneuver in my CPR classes, but it's been a long time since I've seen it, and practicing it on one of the dolls versus doing it in real life to my own son. I didn't respond as well or as quickly as she did. So I was very thankful for her being there. So yeah, she's well trained in the medical field, and just an amazing mom and just person in general. So I am blessed to have her.
Well, it's amazing how instincts take over, right? And obviously through your that's why you guys train the way you do, right? So that when you're confronted with a situation, you don't think about it, you just instinctively do it. And obviously fantastic for your wife to step up and take care of the family like that.
Indeed. Yeah.
So you've mentioned mindfulness. I'm going to be the ignorant one here. I hear the word frequently. I probably get it, but I don't really know what it means, right? Can you explain it to me better?
Sure.
So I try to understand this.
Yeah. There's formal definitions, and I hope the sound in the background is not too distracting as I'm on the side of the road. But
we don't even hear it.
Good. There's formal definitions for mindfulness. Really, it's being present in the here and now, not worrying about the past or being too concerned about the future. Being present in the here and now without any judgment. That's one of the kind of formal definitions. But really, the way that I like to put it is just situational awareness. I mean, that's what we practice in the SEAL teams. You're aware of the situation. You're aware of the here and now, the present moment. And that's kind of a layman's term, or a layman's definition rather, of the term mindfulness. It's definitely getting more use these days, probably overused. A lot of people use mindfulness and meditation synonymously, and they are not necessarily the same. There is overlap between the two, but they aren't the same. And I can get into that further in the conversation, but there is great benefit in practicing both of them, both physically and mentally, and quite honestly, spiritually. I think there's great practice or benefit in practicing the two of them. So I'll tell you real quick, Joe, how I got into it, and then we can get into some further questions. But in the SEAL teams, the first deployment that I went on, we had a pretty bad run of it. And the book Lone Survivor was actually the first deployment that I was on. So Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell, we ended up having 3 of the guys that we inserted on a special reconnaissance mission killed in a firefight. And then the quick reaction force that came in for that crew was shot down in a helicopter, for a total loss of 19 people. 11 Navy SEALs and 8 Army Night Stalkers. So shout out to the Army. I'm a huge fan of the Army and the Navy, and all services. But those were the 2 services specifically in that operation where we had loss of life. And I was friends with all those guys. I knew some of their families, and there was a chance that I was supposed to be on that operation, and I was pulled off kind of towards the end there. Because I lost those friends and there was my survival, I ended up really questioning why I was still alive. Why me? Why not being still alive? Or why did they die and not me? So I battled with survivor guilt through my time in the Navy after that operation for quite some time. And that caused depression and caused anxiety and stress. And I had the Navy give me different medications to deal with that. I had them give me different types of talk counseling to help with that. And they both helped. The medication and the talk counseling helped to a point. The medication, however, kind of made me feel a little bit numb. And the talk counseling, I wasn't able to truly address the root issues, the root causes of what I was dealing with, because I wasn't truly in touch with what I was experiencing. And finally, I had a counselor recommend mindfulness and meditation to me. And I tried it out. And in all honesty, I tried it out for the first 2 weeks and went back to him after that 2 weeks and told him, hey, look, this is not working for me. What else do you have? And then he kind of laughed at me and said, hey, look, that's like going to the gym and expecting that you're going to come back looking like a bodybuilder after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that fast.
Right.
You do get some immediate results, but the long-term results don't show up for a while. So I practiced for 2 months, and then I started to see the results. And the biggest thing was I started to realize what it was that was causing me the anxiety, what it was that was causing me the stress and depression. And then I could take that and speak very frankly to the counselors that I was seeing. So it was kind of the meditation and the counseling going hand in hand. And I want to make sure everybody heard that correctly, because quite often people hear medication. Yes. It was the meditation with a T, not medication with a C, that helped me out more than anything. And it was about the same time that I was starting to think about retirement that this was going on. And I had a mentor of mine mention to me that I need to figure out what I was going to do after I retire. And I started to look at some of the bright and shiny objects that are out there for military officers as they retire. And none of the professions really jumped out at me as something that I was passionate about. I like project management. I am not a PMP. I will be completely upfront about that, but I like thinking about projects, what goes into getting it from the start to actually getting something built or done or accomplished. So that was something that appealed to me. And then I wanted to carry this I wanted to carry this mindfulness forward as well and pay it forward to other veterans. So I was thinking, well, I'm going to combine my project management and my mindfulness, and I'm going to create a nonprofit that teaches this. Well, luckily, I didn't have to create it from scratch, because Veterans Path, the nonprofit that I work for now, existed, and they brought me on as their deputy executive director. They actually brought me on through the Skill Bridge program that we were talking about before the show, prior to my retirement. So I've had several months of experience prior to getting out of the Navy, and now day one of getting out, I had a job. So that's been very nice to know that with the family, I was going to be able to continue to take care of them financially right after getting out.
That's fantastic. And thanks obviously for the backstory on that, because when I first started following you on LinkedIn and seeing your posts, I kept thinking to myself, how does a Navy SEAL and mindfulness come together, right? Because there's this image we have out in the civilian workforce, right? You guys are the best of the best. You're everything that's on the movies, right? You're not real because nobody knows you guys. You're these people we never see here or whatever. And then we see movies, right? The Lone Survivor and Chris Kyle's story and all those sorts of things.
Right.
So you guys are these just heroes in our eyes. So why would someone like you need mindfulness? And then as you describe it, it's so obvious why you would need mindfulness.
Right.
And how that could benefit. And then it makes me think of me or you. We're just dads, right? And at times we're thinking we're supposed to be stoic and commanders of our family and leaders. And boy, we could all use mindfulness in our own lives, just being men, right? And just being part of a dad in our family.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had a discussion with a gentleman yesterday about what Veterans Path, our nonprofit, does for men specifically. We do retreats, and we do mindfulness and veteran training for both men and women. But this one gentleman asked me what we do for men specifically, and he said, "I think it's redefining what is masculine." And I think there's some truth to that, but I flipped it on him. I said, "Well, I don't want to redefine what is masculine, because there are certain things that are going to forever be masculine. And I think what we are doing is rather opening up mindfulness and meditation to those who are masculine. We aren't redefining masculinity."
Right.
So yeah, as a mindfulness practitioner, as a mindfulness teacher, a lot of the time the stereotype or the image that pops into somebody's head is kind of a hippie or a monk. And we don't have anything against either one of those. I mean, I'm friends with hippies and monks, and I'm a huge fan of both of them, but I don't fit that stereotype, and I am neither one of them. And I want to bring meditation and mindfulness to a population that normally wouldn't be open to it. And I know that with my background, I can do that. So it definitely lends to credibility amongst a more machismo crew, if you will, when I tell them my backstory, and then I tell them, and now I'm a mindfulness teacher. So yeah, I'm totally tracking with you about the different views of Navy SEALs, and I'm not taking the traditional track for sure. But funny enough, there are several. Mark Devine is another SEAL who practices mindfulness and meditation, and he's got his own books written about it. So I am certainly not the first, and I'm sure, or I rather hope, that I will not be the last.
Well, I'm sure you're not, because you're carrying on that message so well, but with Veterans Path, your podcast, your social media activity, and just your life practice, right? So I doubt you'll be last, and you're creating a great example for others to follow in your footsteps.
Thank you.
One thing you had also mentioned was the difference between mindfulness and meditation. What is that difference, right? What is, how do you describe that for us layman folks out here?
Sure. The way I try to describe it is, if you know what a Venn diagram is, you've got, 2 circles, 3 circles, and they kind of overlap. Well, this Venn diagram, if you can imagine in your mind, mindfulness being in one and meditation being in another, and there being a little bit of overlap between the two of them. Meditation is where you're very intentional about setting aside some time to practice some form of meditation, whether it is mindfulness meditation or whether it's transcendental meditation, whether it's yoga nidra. There's many different types of meditation. I specifically focus on mindfulness meditation. And that's kind of the overlap. So I defined mindfulness earlier in the show. Now I've defined meditation where you specifically set aside some time to do that. The overlap between the two, that's mindfulness meditation. That's where you set aside some time very specifically to be mindful about what it is you're doing, about your experience, about your life. So you may set aside 2 minutes, you may set aside 30 minutes to focus on your breath, focus on physical sensations that you're experiencing in the here and now. It might be sounds, it might be smells, maybe taste. You can even meditate with your eyes open and take in the sights that you're seeing. That is meditation. Sorry, my dog off to the side is really putting on a show. You can't see it, but she's putting on a heck of a show for me.
Hey, she's being quiet. That's great.
Yeah, she's a quiet dog. She's just full of energy. But anyway, I'm trying to be mindful about being focused on the show. So that's the overlap between the two. Going back to mindfulness, I mentioned it's being present in the here and now and focusing on the here and now and not so much about the past or about the future. You can be mindful in just about anything you do. I'm trying to be mindful in being here with you on the show right now, focusing on the questions that you're asking me, focusing on what I'm talking about. When you're talking to me, I'm not trying to formulate a response in my mind. I'm just listening to what it is you're asking. That's being mindful. You can eat mindfully, whereas most of us every day, when we're rushing from one meeting to the next, we scarf down a cheeseburger in between meetings. And if somebody asks us at the end of the day, what did you eat for lunch? Most of us have trouble even remembering that we stopped for lunch, if we did stop. And then if you try to think about what you had, most of us can't even remember because we're so fast paced. Our life has become so fast paced that we're not being mindful about the things we're doing. And it extends about not being mindful in eating. You're not mindful in your relationships. You're not mindful in your conversations. A lot of the time, somebody will be talking to you and you're thinking about what's for dinner. You're thinking about your to-do list. You're thinking about COVID-19 and how it's affecting the country and finances and health and safety. You know, the list is endless about what else is on our minds. But rarely are you 100% devoted to the conversation that you're having because we don't know how to be mindful. That's the difference between mindfulness and meditation. They do go hand in hand, but they aren't synonymous. So when somebody says, are you practicing mindfulness? They don't mean, are you sitting down to meditate? And then when they say, are you practicing meditation? They don't necessarily mean, are you practicing mindfulness? So they're similar, but they're not one and the same.
Yeah, and as you're speaking, right, I'm thinking, man, my good thing my wife Alyssa's not listening to the show today. She'd be like, see, somebody else is telling you the same thing, right? I mean, we could be, sitting in the living room and I'm on my phone, I'm playing a game or something, and we're having a conversation, or at least she's having a conversation, and I'm not practicing mindfulness, right? I'm responding to her questions, but if you asked me 2 minutes later what we talked about, I would have no idea.
Right.
Because I'm distracted and really not being mindful. So we may not put this podcast out for production because Alyssa's going to let me have it. But boy, it's so spot on, right? We deal with this every day. And of course, this is a project management radio show, and we do the same thing running projects, right? We get so caught up in the noise of the project that so often we aren't mindful of the actual situations in front of us, right?
Right.
And I think there's a lot to be learned from what you're talking here and how we can benefit. And that's why I wanted you to come on as well, because it's project management, as we find, is more people skills than it is the technical skills of executing the project. And the better we can get at the people side of it, the easier the technical will be. So having you on to share this has been really beneficial.
I definitely think that the two, though they don't sound like they go hand in hand, being mindful as a project manager, I think does. I've actually, when I was living in Virginia and I was still on active duty, I went and spoke to the local PMI chapter because I do believe, again, though they seem not related. They are. That you have to be mindful and pay attention to what is happening in every step of the project that you're trying to work through, so that you can ultimately get to the end goal without getting distracted, without getting anxious, without getting worried. You can still get through that project. And I think that's critical.
Absolutely. And there's others. Simon Sinek, right? He kind of hit it big because a recording of a talk he did at a PMI chapter, or a Puget Sound PMI chapter, went viral, right? I mean, it was the start of...
start with why.
Yeah. So, hey, you never know what happens when you do those PMI chats, right?
Right.
So you've mentioned Veterans Path. Tell us more about that organization and why it's so important and what they're doing to help veterans.
Sure. So Veterans Path was actually founded in 2008 by two women, Lee Lesser and Chris Fortin, out in Berkeley, California. And it was originally called Honoring the Path of the Warrior, and then got rebranded as Veterans Path later. But Lee and Chris, they were anti-war. At one point, Lee actually marched against the Vietnam War. Many years later, when guys and gals were going to Iraq and Afghanistan, they were coming back with post-traumatic stress. They were coming back with military sexual trauma effects. They were coming back with some loads that they were carrying. Lee and Chris realized that being anti-war doesn't necessarily mean being anti-military. And they realized that they could help veterans in dealing with these demons that they were having. So they started small. They started teaching mindfulness and meditation to small retreats, and that slowly grew into a bigger thing where they were doing week-long retreats, and eventually they started doing month-long or several month-long retreats where you come in, do a week in person, then you are online for a few months, and then you come back for another check-in at the end. And people that were going through these programs were having profound effects. They were really starting to go from being depressed or almost stressed to the point of debilitation to being really high-performing individuals, really much happier, finding a sense of peace, acceptance, transformation, and honor. And that's actually where the word path in Veterans Path comes from: peace, acceptance, transformation, and honor. And that's what veterans were able to find through mindfulness and meditation. And what Veterans Path does is they teach that to the veterans, typically in outdoor settings, so that they can kind of get their minds cleared. And then they also connect those veterans to develop a sense of community, because that's so important. As you're getting out of the military, you've been a part of this community for 4 years, 10 years, however long you've been in. And that's the sense that you feel a camaraderie, that the people you feel a camaraderie with. And then you leave. And Veterans Path helps to connect veterans with other veterans to develop that sense of community. What we do now, we've been doing those retreats that I mentioned, but COVID has also thrown a wrench in those plans, and we've started to go to online. So, Joe, I think you probably see me posting in the past few weeks about online meditation and mindfulness training specifically for veterans and currently serving military members. We've started that with a partner, eMindful. eMindful is a platform where it's a meditation platform, meditation app, much like the other ones out there, but they offer both pre-recorded stuff and live teachers. The benefit of having the live virtual, like over Zoom or Cisco, WebEx, having a person there on the other end is at the end of the mindfulness session, you can ask questions and really delve a little bit deeper than just doing the meditation that's been pre-recorded. They do offer those as well, but we've gone with the teachers for our online stuff. So that's what we have with Veterans Path now until COVID starts to again kind of lessen its effects on society, and we're able to do more face-to-face. We'll go back to those face-to-face and outdoor kind of wilderness retreats.
Yeah, I love the community aspect of that. I did, I guess it was last year, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon supporting Team Red, White, and Blue, right? Because it's the
Nice.
same concept, right? It's the community of bringing veterans together for physical activity to help give them a break from some of those traumas that may be holding them back from having a breakthrough. So to hear Veterans Path, same thing. I mean, that's awesome. Right? I love that.
I've run that Marine Corps marathon, and that last 0.2 up the hill towards the Iwo Jima monument is brutal. It's really heartbreaking when you see that at the end. But hey, good job. And Team Red, White, and Blue, I'm a huge fan of. As a matter of fact, one of the ambassadors for Team Red, White, and Blue, Janelle McCauley, she's a former Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, also a big mindfulness practitioner. She works with Veterans Path as well. So lots of overlap in the different organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure you did better on that marathon than I did. I guess it was mile 8, my knee just gave out on me, right? So you don't quit, right? When you run a marathon, you run the marathon.
Yeah. Right.
But knowing the last 0.2 was going to be so tough, I actually walked from 25 to 26 so I'd have enough steam to make sure I could run the last 0.2.
That's a tough 0.2. It is a tough 0.2.
Yes, everyone forgets the 0.2 except the people running, right?
Right.
So, we're on a podcast radio show. This is kind of fun. I love this. It gives us an opportunity to meet amazing leaders like yourself. But this isn't unique for you, right? You have your own podcast as well.
Yeah, it's connected to Veterans Path, and it's entitled Veterans Path. We bring on veterans who have discovered mindfulness. We also bring on very high-performing athletes, very high-performing corporate leaders who practice mindfulness or have some connection to mental health. And the goal behind the Veterans Path podcast, well, there's several, but one of them is obviously to raise awareness of Veterans Path and what it is we do. But the other one is to break the stigma of seeking mental health support. Because in the military, we're all given huge pats on the back when we're going to the gym. If somebody knows somebody else is going to the gym, they're like, "Hey, attaboy, attagirl, way to go, way to get after it, way to keep yourself in good shape." But if somebody finds out you're going to go see a counselor or a psychologist, people instantly assume that something is wrong or that you're crazy. And that's a terrible stigma to have, when what we should be doing is celebrating that person by, "Hey, great job. Way to maintain your mental health. Way to look towards improving your mental health." Because if that's what we can do, if we can change the narrative on people seeking mental health to where it's a good thing, to where it's seen in a positive light, more people will do it. And once people seek that mental health support more often, that's the foundation that everything else is built upon. Once you're mentally healthy, you're going to go to the gym and get into good physical shape. You're going to eat better. You're going to communicate better in your family, and your family health, your family mental health will improve. And I think that's so important with veterans, with the challenges, the unique challenges that we have. When I say veterans, I mean both those who have hung up the uniform and those who are still currently serving. The unique challenges that we have with deploying away from our families into combat zones, into the face of danger, that weighs on the families as well.
Sure. So
if we can get the mental health of the service member or the veteran improved, ideally we can improve the mental health and the communication, the relationships of the family as well. So there's many layers to it, but that's kind of the idea behind Veterans Path. We've had some phenomenal guests on there, some really famous mindfulness teachers and meditation teachers. We've had some gold medalists. We've had NFL players. So we've had quite a selection of folks on there, and it's a kind of a passion project of mine, the podcast. So thank you for bringing that up and allowing me to share that.
Is it live now, or you're kind of in a hiatus? What's the status of that? And is it on all, Apple Podcasts? Is it on all the different platforms?
It is on Apple and Spotify and all the different major podcast platforms. I am taking a hiatus between season 1 and season 2. The the goal behind season 2 was to actually interview veterans live as I was traveling around the country. But as we've kind of changed this whole RV trip, we're going to change back to what I was doing before, where I interview folks via Zoom, much like you are interviewing me, and then put that up on the podcast. And it is both a video and audio podcast. About halfway through season 1, I figured out how to do video, and so it's on YouTube as well under Veterans Path.
Well, it sounds like us. We just figured out the video a few episodes back as well. So yeah, it's great to have a face, right? Not just the voice.
Yeah. The face, the body language. You get so much more by watching the conversation. It's funny when you think about it that you're watching a conversation between two people, but really when you see it and you see the body language and the smiles, the laughs, it's a lot more than just the audio. Obviously, the audio side is great if you're driving. You don't want to be watching the video side.
Right. Yeah.
But I think there's just so much more in the video side of things.
One thing you mentioned I wanted to touch on also is you had talked about veterans and active duty. My oldest son is a senior in high school, and he's planning to go into the Navy next year. So it's in the recruiting process as well, right? So he was seeking a counselor or seeing a counselor. And part of it is to help prepare him to make sure he's mentally ready to go in and participate in the military. And during the recruiting process, right, they want those records and they want to make sure that he's a stable individual. And,
right,
part of my concern was he's actually doing this to become more stable, right, and be a better recruit. And will that be seen as a negative, kind of like you said, right? If he's going to the gym and he's working out and he's getting his ASVABs ready, and that's all pat on the back, attaboy. But the visual you talked about, the face on the recruiter, right? His look changed when we said, well, he is going to counseling.
Yeah.
And how do we get that more accepted, right? I mean, how does this become mainstream and approved within society?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the mission here. Is not only my podcast and not only Veterans Path, but my getting on other podcasts like yours is spreading this message across across society, really, not just the military, but across society that it is okay. And not only is it okay, but it should be encouraged to seek that mental health support. The Navy, funny you should mention, they have a program at boot camp called the Warrior Toughness Program. And it was created by, and when I tell you this, it sounds kind of like a joke, but it was created by a Navy SEAL, a Navy chaplain, and a Navy psychologist. So the joke with this one Navy SEAL who actually came on Veterans Path podcast a while back is a Navy SEAL, a chaplain, and a psychologist all walk into a bar. What comes out of it? Well, what comes out of it is the Navy Toughness Program. So Navy, when your son joins the Navy, he'll be going through the Warrior Toughness Program because it is something that includes mindfulness and meditation. The reason I brought it up, they actually teach that now at Navy boot camp because a couple of years back we had several Navy ships collide. We had Navy ships running aground, and when that was happening, there were some sailors who were catatonic. They were not responding to this trauma, and the idea is that bringing mindfulness and meditation into the Warrior Toughness Program will actually help them to respond more rationally in a traumatic event than for them to go catatonic.
Yeah, I love that. And it's great to see, I guess, maybe a modernization of the forces, maybe as a way to look at that, right? And bringing situational awareness, mindfulness into their training program as well. So that's awesome. As a dad, right? That's comforting to hear, right? Because you're always concerned when your son's going to go off and join the service.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, I can only imagine. Now that I've got my 3-year-old little girl and a 1-year-old little boy, my mom always tells me that she still sees me as a little boy. And in my mind now, I imagining my daughter joining the services or my son joining the services. I'm like, in my mind, you're always going to be a little boy, a little girl, and I can only imagine the feelings and emotions that you as a parent experience. So mindfulness meditation may be helpful with that aspect as well.
Yes. Yeah. My wife and I at the recruiting station, I think we're in two different mindsets, right? I was the proud dad and my wife was the concerned parent, right? So it was,
Sure.
but hey, that's, we need people like yourself and my son that are going to serve our country and keep us safe. So
Indeed.
Hats off to both of you.
Well, thank you.
So another thing I wanted to touch on, we kind of talked about it a little bit. Here we've got the video, so I'm going to bring up this, the Scrum on the Go board.
Yes, sir.
So for us in the project management world, right, everybody has a good idea of Scrum. How did this idea come about? You mentioned some partners that you're working with on that to support this.
So, Beth Davis and John Davis are both Scrum teachers. I got my Scrum Master and Scrum product. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog. She's really whining here.
She just wants in on the conversation.
She does. My Scrum product owner certification. I was really brought into Scrum and turned on to it by a friend, and I really started enjoying practicing it at work. I started implementing it in my Navy work, and another really good friend of mine was teaching it to his Navy EOD team that he was the commander of. And to see it starting to be used in the military, I was really impressed. But then I saw that because we were all working in secure spaces, you couldn't carry these boards home with all the sticky notes on them. So I made a comment to one of my friends. I was like, man, wouldn't it be great if we could make this a small thing and each person could have their own Scrum on the Go board? And it's kind of said in jest initially. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, it would be. And guess what? If you could fold it and make it metal, it would be even cooler. And I was like, oh man, I think we might be onto something here. So we created the Scrum on the Go board. We started it like any entrepreneur would with a minimum viable product, the MVP, and like literally it was like I bought a dry erase board, folded it in half, and I was like, okay, this is the MVP. Let's see if it works. And I started using it around this co-working space where I was working, and people started asking me what it was, and I was like, okay, so there's some interest.
Yeah.
So let's see if about manufacturing one. So we ended up manufacturing a folding metal board, and then putting stickers with the backlog, the doing, and done on it. That was our second version, and that's still available. I have 7 of those left still on Etsy for sale, because that's where that was the next stage. Okay, let's sell them online. And I sold them on Etsy, and was marginally successful with that. And then I had somebody contact us from this company that wanted to make them better by doing away with the stickies, actually printing it, manufacturing it, and they brought us to Amazon. And I'm sorry, the friend that I mentioned at the beginning, Saul Gomez, he's a retired Navy chief. He's doing phenomenal stuff too, but he's the friend who was just like, oh yeah, you should do this. And it was all said in jest. And now it's kind of taken off into something that I hope becomes even more successful, and that all project managers and Scrum masters, Scrum product owners will all own one at some point. That's kind of my vision.
Yeah. Well, I can say I bought 3 of them. Right. So I will be your advocate, and I will pitch this for you all day long. I use it for my businesses, right, to organize my work. It fits in my backpack. It's very easy to use. We have one, my son, who I mentioned, right, trying to go into getting ready for the military. He's putting all his activities on there so that he's tracking his work that way.
Excellent.
And then we have another one that our family's using, right? Just for different things we have, especially 4 kids at home trying to do school, my wife and I trying to do our work and trying to take care of things. Right. It just helps you be organized, right? And it's not overburdening.
That's good
right?
to hear.
Yeah. It's not just, obviously the start of it is the Scrum project management tool. But man, bring it home. Use it at home. It's a great tool.
It's nice to have it handy and always visible, right? So you have it there on your desk right now. And when I started marketing it on LinkedIn, I had a lot of people say, "Well, why can't I just use this? Why can't I just create an app that does this, or have it on my computer?" Well, that's the whole point. Is that if you have it on your computer, if you have it on an app, as soon as you open up your phone, it's going to get lost behind 35 other apps, or it's going to get lost on your computer behind PowerPoint. Or if you're like us and you're in the military and you have this on your computer, you can't bring it home because you're working in a secure space. Whereas what you have in front of you there now, Karen, Joe had it a second ago, you can carry that back and forth. Obviously, you wouldn't want to write anything classified on it, but you can bring that into secure spaces. You can bring it out of secure spaces. You can use it when you're not using your phone. You can use it when you are. You can have it up in front of you, in front of your computer, while you have your PowerPoints, while you have your emails and everything else. The work is visible. So that's the kind of the beauty behind it. And going back to your having 3 of them, I myself have 2 of them. I have a personal one and a work one. My wife has one. And then even our nanny, when we lived in Virginia, she saw us using one and she was like, you know what? I would like one of those. So I made my nanny one too. And she's been using it with great success. And you know, we talked earlier about project management and mindfulness kind of tying together. This thing also helps you to de-stress and to be mindful about what is going on right now, because it's got the stickies on it that you don't move to the doing column until you're ready to actually work on it. And that makes you be more mindful about actually working on that specific task rather than trying to get 15 tasks all done at once and multitasking and then never actually accomplishing those tasks. The Scrum on the Go board helps you to focus and get through those tasks kind of 1 or 2 at a time.
Yeah. And there's tools like Trello and all that stuff, right, that you can use on your machine. But the reason I love this, especially for my son and family type settings, is it's so easy to see, and the visualization of it and having it in your hand makes it tangible, right? When it's on your phone or on a laptop, you see it, right? But you're not actually picking up the sticky and moving it over, and that makes it so much more real. And that's why people have Scrum boards, right, in offices, right? It's not just on your laptop. It's actually a board that they have. So I love the fact that it's physical. Yeah.
And there's physiological proof that, actually touching a sticky and moving it from one column to the next, you get that dopamine hit. Whereas on your phone, if you just check it off and say, okay, yeah, it's done, you still get a little bit of dopamine, but the tactile sensation of touching that sticky is dramatically more than checking something on your phone. And you're less distracted because you're not doing it on your phone.
Absolutely. We try to have a few veterans on our show every year, in large part because I am so committed to the veterans and providing.
Thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome. But serving those who serve us, right, is what we all should be practicing. And I always try to get some life lessons from them, right, and then bring that into my audience, but also into my own life. And we've had so many that have taught us a bunch of different things. But what is, if there's a nugget that you can think back to the training you've received or the education you received, what is it that you can bring to the listeners maybe as a kind of a golden nugget from Jon Macaskill of military training gave me something that maybe you wouldn't have got otherwise?
Yeah, wow.
Sorry to stump you on that one.
No, you haven't stumped me. I would say that there's a lot of nuggets out there. I'm just trying to think of the golden one. I think the nugget, and I don't think this is military specific. I think it's just leadership specific, is that you should always be learning from the good and the bad examples. So in my time, 24 years in the military, I ran into some phenomenal leaders that I took lessons from. And I ran into some folks who were, I'll just say, less than phenomenal. And with that, I always had a notebook in my pocket or, on my desk. And I would write down little lessons, little what we call after action reports or lessons learned. And I would write these down about what to do from the good leaders and what not to do from the bad leaders. So I guess if I had one golden nugget to share, it would be have a growth mindset and always be willing to learn from those around you, whether it's learning what to do or learning what not to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, when I talk project management or do my own webinars or do coaching, I always bring up the fact that as youth, we're trained, we're coached, we're given leadership. And for some reason, people snap their finger at 18 or 21 and think now you have it. And we don't do that anymore. And what I love about the military, from all the interaction I have with people through VPMMA and just conversations, is they carry that forward, right? You constantly are being trained. You're constantly being coached. You're constantly being led. So that, to me, is a differentiator, right, between the corporate world and the military. And
yes, sir.
How do we bring that, right? How do we get that back into corporate world, right? How do we let adults know it's okay to have a coach? It's okay to have somebody try to teach you something new. I don't know everything. I'm constantly seeking out guidance. And to me, that's the strength of the military.
A lot of the time we're all reading. We're reading self-help books. We're reading project management books. We're reading leadership books or management books. So why is it okay to read about it, but not learn from the actual, get the word from the horse's mouth, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a coach, I think you're going to get that much more from a coach than you are from a book. And I mean, my bookshelves, not now because I'm living in an RV, but my bookshelves in the house are filled with leadership and management books because I enjoy reading that stuff. But then I hope that I can teach that stuff to friends, to coworkers, to other leaders, to followers. I like to think of myself as a mentor. Maybe that's a better way is seek a mentor rather than a coach. Because I think people maybe have a negative connotation about the word coach or life coach or leadership coach, a mentor. And I think everybody needs mentors throughout our lives, no matter where you are, what stage, how old, whatever, you need mentors.
I always joke at, we tell our kids, go practice your instruments, go practice baseball, right? So when the time comes for your performance or the time comes for your game, you've practiced it and you're going to do well. Yet I never see anybody in a corporate setting practicing. And we wonder why projects fail half the time. It's because we never practice them. We're constantly out there trying to do it without practice. So I'm on my leadership horse here of how do we bring practice back into corporate world and learn from our lessons of the youth, right? And understand that there's value there.
Right.
We'll see if I get success with that. Who knows? But it's that's part of my empowering people to deliver results. Is empower them, give them the tools to be successful, and practice is one of those tools. Well, we are
absolutely
coming up on the end of our hour here, so this went by super fast. And the other thing I want to mention is you mentioned books and reading. We just got Jocko Willink's book on leadership. It's the first.
It's got Extreme Leadership and the Dichotomy of Leadership.
The Extreme Leadership one. That's the one we just picked up. So
he and Leif Babin did a great job with that one.
Just so trying to learn different types of leadership from different experiences and backgrounds. So who knows? Maybe we'll get him on the show and he can talk about that book one day as well.
If you get Jocko, you're getting a great guy there. He's got so many great lessons, and his combat background and his corporate side together. I mean, it's a great combination.
Well, obviously, I think we had a great combination with you on the show today. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Brought knowledge to me and an understanding of something that I kind of was aware of, but really never understood. So thank you for that. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience of how they can get in touch with you or anything upcoming?
Yeah, that would be great. Yes. If you want to get a hold of me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Jon Macaskill. It's JON Macaskill. And there's two of us, but I'm the one Navy SEAL mindfulness guy. And if you wanted to find me on other social media, I'm on Instagram as Mindful Frogman. My email is just Jon, JON, @veteranspath.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
I'm kind of glad that we're at the end of this hour because I think my dogs are about to freak out.
Well, thank you so much. It's been
this has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on, Jon. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you to all our listeners as well. Please be sure to go out and visit projectmanagementofficehours.com to check out all of our past shows. And boy, do we have an all-star lineup of guests coming up over the remainder of the year. We have Cindy Dionisio and Mike Griffiths, who are two of the lead authors on PMBOK 7 that's going to be coming out. And that is a earth-shattering, groundbreaking change to the PMBOK. So you need to get that. Elizabeth Heron from the UK, Priya Patra from India, Peter Taylor from the UK, Ben Aston from Canada, Jason Westland, Cornelius Fichtner, and Kieran Bondale. And then we start next year with our first guest from Africa, Billy Mwapwe from Zambia. Wow. Lots of great guests coming up. And I'm going to find time to fit Jocko in there as well. So a reminder that these shows are recorded, right? We're live now, but we record these, release them as a podcast. So please subscribe to Project Management Office Hours on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, whatever your podcast platform of choice is. Of course, thank you to our sponsors, the PMO Squad. Visit thepmosquad.com to learn more about the purpose-driven PMO and all their project management services. That's it for now. Office hours are closed. Until next time, I'm PMO Joe, and you've been listening to Project Management Office Hours.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Project Management Office Hours with PMO Joe. You're not alone in your project management journey. We're here to help you achieve your goals. Subscribe to Project Management Office Hours on your favorite podcast platform to catch all of our episodes and hear industry leaders share their story and secrets to success.